There's something she touched the last time you were together, and if you knew what it meant, you wouldn't be wondering how she feels about you. Most men spend an enormous amount of energy trying to read a woman's face. They watch for smiles, they count the seconds of eye contact, they replay conversations afterward, looking for clues in what she said or didn't say. And all of that attention goes toward the most obvious, most controlled surface a woman has. Her face is where she manages her expression. It is not where her attraction lives. Her attraction lives somewhere quieter. It lives in the small, unconscious movements her body makes when her mind is busy doing something else entirely. And one of the clearest of those movements, one of the most reliable signals she can give you, happens not toward you, but near you, around you, on the objects and surfaces that exist in the space between the two of you. There's a specific thing a woman touches when she is attracted to you. She has probably already done it in front of you, more than once, and you walked away without knowing it happened. By the end of this video, that changes. You will be able to read this in real time, without asking, without guessing, and without confusing friendly with interested ever again. Most men are watching her face. That is not wrong, but it means they are missing everything happening just below it. Think about how you were taught to read interest from a woman. Eye contact, smiling, laughing at what you say, leaning in. All of those signals are real, but they are also the ones a woman knows she is broadcasting. They live above the neck, in the most socially visible part of her body, in the part she has managed and adjusted since she was a teenager. She has spent years learning to control what her face does in social situations. Her hands are a different story. Men are trained by experience, by instinct, by everything the culture teaches about attraction, to watch for direct signals. Signals aimed at them. Signals that say, without ambiguity, I am interested in you. And because men are calibrated to receive direct signals, they miss an entire category of indirect ones. The signals that happen in the margins, the quiet movements at the edge of the frame. This is not a failure of awareness. It is a failure of calibration. You were looking in the right direction for the wrong thing. Once you understand why you have been looking in the wrong place, the signals become almost impossible to unsee. So if direct signals are the distraction, what are the real ones? And what exactly is she touching when her body decides she likes you? She is not deciding to touch it. That is what makes it reliable. When a woman feels genuine attraction, something physiological happens before she forms a single conscious thought about it. Her nervous system activates. There is a low-level charge, not unpleasant, but slightly unsettling, and her body begins managing that charge the same way bodies always manage unfamiliar internal states. Through movement, through contact, through the kind of small, grounding, physical action that takes the edge off something that feels too large to simply sit with. Psychologists call this displacement behavior, the tendency to redirect internal emotional energy outward through minor physical activity when direct expression of that emotion feels too exposed. You see it everywhere once you know what it is. People tap their feet when they are nervous. They click pens when they are bored. They smooth clothing they have already smoothed 3 times. In the presence of attraction, a woman's hands begin to move toward the things nearest to her. Not randomly, but in patterns that follow the emotional logic of what she is feeling. She is not performing. She is not sending a message she has composed. Her hands are processing what her mind has not yet decided what to do with. This is what makes the signal clean. Conscious behavior can be faked. Displacement behavior, triggered by genuine attraction, cannot. Now that you know why her hands move, Let's talk about what they reach for first and what that specific object is telling you. It usually starts with something small, something sitting between the two of you that she had no reason to touch. There are 3 categories of object you want to learn to notice, and each one carries a slightly different meaning. The first is her own belongings, her phone, her bag, a ring or bracelet she is wearing. When a woman repeatedly touches, repositions, or adjusts her own items, and those items are oriented toward you, moved closer to you, or handled in a way that feels deliberate rather than habitual, she is doing something that behavioral researchers have identified as proximity marking. She is placing herself, through her objects, into your space. Her body wants to close the distance between you. Her social awareness keeps that impulse in check. Her hands find a compromise. Watch the direction of the movement. If she shifts her phone from beside her hip to the surface between the two of you, that is not a coincidence. If she slides her cup or her glass a few inches toward your side of the table, that is not a coincidence either. The objects in her hands are acting as extensions of an intention she has not yet verbalized. The second category is the shared surface between you. A glass, a menu, the stem of a wine glass, a candle, anything on the table or the space you both occupy. When she reaches for something in the shared zone, touches it, traces it, wraps her fingers around it, she is building a bridge. The space between two people in early attraction is charged. It feels like it has weight. Touching an object in that space is a way of entering it without the vulnerability of touching you. Of course, context matters here. A woman absently reaching for her drink while looking across the room is not signaling anything. A woman who reaches for her drink, makes contact with it, and then looks at you, that sequence has a different quality entirely. The third category is self-touch combined with environmental anchoring. She touches her own hair or clothing while her eyes move to something near you, your jacket on the back of a chair, something you brought with you, an object in your immediate field. This is a dual-channel signal. The self-touch is managing the internal charge. The visual anchor is her attention landing on you or the space that belongs to you without making direct eye contact that might feel too revealing. One instance of any of these means very little. A pattern across a single conversation means almost everything. But here is where it gets more specific, because the timing of when she reaches for something tells you almost as much as what she touches. The touch itself is one thing, but when it happens, that separates interest from habit. A woman who is attracted to you will touch the objects near her at specific emotional moments in a conversation. Not randomly, not continuously, at particular beats. Pay attention to what just happened in the conversation directly before her hand moved. If you said something personal, something that revealed a layer of who you actually are, and her hand moved to an object in the space between you within a few seconds of that moment, that is a confirmation signal. Her nervous system responded to emotional content that mattered to her. The touch followed the feeling. If you said something with quiet confidence, not loud, not performed, but the kind of statement that carries its own weight, and her hand moved immediately after, the same principle applies. Confidence in a man produces a measurable physiological response in a woman. The touch is what happens when that response needs somewhere to go. Now compare that to touch that occurs during a lull, a pause in conversation, a moment when attention drifts. Touch in that moment is almost always self-soothing, the kind of baseline comfort behavior that has nothing to do with what you said or who you are to her. That touch is neutral information. The touch you are looking for follows emotional content. It follows your words. It follows a moment when something between you shifted. You might be thinking, couldn't this just be a nervous habit? Someone who fidgets regardless of who they are with? And sometimes, yes. But here is the detail that separates habit from signal. Habitual touch has no directionality. It does not orient toward you. It does not follow the emotional beats of what you said. Attracted touch has a logic. It follows the current of the conversation. Now you can read the what and the when. The next layer is something most men never consider. What she does with that object after she touches it. She put it down. But notice, she did not put it back where it was. This is the follow-through, and it is one of the most quietly telling parts of the entire sequence. When a woman touches an object and then moves it toward you before setting it down, she is doing something her conscious mind would likely deny if you asked her about it. She is marking proximity. She is placing something into your field, reducing the distance between her and you by using the object as a surrogate. When she holds an object, a cup, a pen, anything with shape she can wrap her fingers around, and turns to face you while holding it, she is using it as an anchor to stay present in the conversation. It is giving her nervous system something to hold onto so she can give you her full attention without the exposure of doing so with completely empty hands. And when she sets something down in the space between the two of you and then leaves her hand near it, not pulling back immediately, letting her fingers rest close to where it landed, she is holding the shared space open. She is not retreating. She is staying in the field. Think back to a conversation that once seemed ordinary. One where you walked away without registering what had actually happened, the object she touched, where she set it, where her hand rested afterward. The picture may look different to you now. Remember what I said at the beginning, that there was one signal most men not only miss, but actively misread. We are almost there now. All of those signals are real, but there is one more, and it is the one that matters most, the one she almost never controls, and the one almost no one is talking about. This one is different from everything I have described so far, because this time, she is not touching an object. She is touching something that belongs to you. There is a category of touch that sits at the boundary between the object signals we have been discussing and direct physical contact. It is not quite one thing or the other, and because it occupies that ambiguous middle space, most men who receive it do not know what to do with it. When a woman hands you something, her phone to show you a photo, a menu, a pen to write something down, and her fingers linger at the point of handoff for a second longer than the transfer requires, she is not being careless with the gesture. That moment of extended contact is unconscious but not accidental. It is her nervous system closing a small gap that her social awareness would normally keep open. This is what attachment researchers describe as tactile bridging, using a shared object to create a momentary physical connection that carries the emotional weight of touch without the directness of reaching for someone's hand. The object passes between you. For 1 second, you are both holding it. Her fingers are where yours are about to be. When a woman touches something you have just set down, your keys on the counter, your glass after you have put it back, your jacket on the back of the chair, she is doing something more significant than it appears. She is entering your personal field. She is touching something that carries your warmth, your presence, the outline of where you just were. Behavioral researchers have documented this pattern in early stage attraction as a form of proximity merging, the unconscious desire to make contact with the space a person occupies when making contact with the person themselves still feels like too much. This signal is the hardest to fake because it requires real proximity. She has to be close to you for it to happen at all, and close is where she chose to be. One important qualifier here. A woman handing you something in a functional context, a coworker passing you a document, a server placing something on the table, carries none of this weight. The signal lives in the surplus. It lives in the extra second, the absence of a reason for her fingers to stay, the fact that they did anyway. When you recognize this moment, do not reach for it immediately. Do not name it. Do not make it into a performance. Simply stay present. Let the moment breathe. That is almost always the most powerful thing you can do with a signal like this. Receive it without turning it into something that has to be analyzed out loud. That is where most men go wrong. They see something they were not expecting to see, and they rush to do something with it. They speak when they should stay quiet. They move when they should stay still. The signal was an invitation into a moment, not a starting pistol. Everything in this video has been pointing toward a single unified truth, and I want to name it plainly before we close. Women communicate attraction long before they say a word about it. They do not announce it. They do not perform it in the ways men have been taught to look for. They express it in the small, unconscious movements their bodies make when their minds are occupied with feeling something they have not yet decided to act on. The touch signals you have learned today, the proximity marking, the bridge building in the shared space, the follow-through direction, the tactile bridging at the handoff, all of them are expressions of the same underlying impulse. She wants to be closer to you. Her body is already moving toward that without waiting for her permission. You did not need to become a different person to read these signals. You only needed to shift where you were looking. That is what this channel does. It does not tell you how to perform or how to chase. It shows you how to see what was already there, clearly, calmly, and with enough precision to know the difference between interest and kindness, attraction and politeness, a signal and a habit. You do not need to overanalyze every conversation from here. You do not need to keep a mental scorecard. What you have now is something quieter and more useful than that, a calibration. A new setting on the instrument you have always had. Drop the word noticed in the comments if you are being honest with yourself. There is at least one moment from the last few weeks that looks completely different to you now. If this kind of content gives you something real, not just information, but a new way of seeing, subscribe. Because what I cover on this channel is not surface level. It goes into the psychology behind the behavior, the reason behind the signal, and what it actually means for the way you show up. In the next video, I am going to explain something that confuses almost every man who gets this far. Why a woman who gives you all of these signals will sometimes go completely quiet, and what that silence is actually saying about how she feels.